Welcome back to Previously Prohibited. I'm Jenin Eunice here with my co-host Melissa Whitty, and we're joined today by Jose Vega. I'm very excited to speak with him. He is a candidate for, or congressional candidate for New York's 15th district, or 15th congressional district. He'll be challenging Ritchie Torres in 2026, which is incredible because I am not a huge fan of Ritchie Torres, to say the least, and I don't think many of our listeners are. So, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us, Jose. Melissa, over to you.
Yes, guys, welcome back. Thank you so much. And my dogs will not be making an appearance today. Unfortunately, it was raining the other night. There was a lot of chaos the other night going on this podcast. So we do apologize for them who they love to act out. Nonetheless, we had some microphone issues, had to raise the volume on our guests. So there was a lot of reasons, but the dogs are not here. All right. It is a beautiful Carolina day and the dogs will not be interrupting. So we are so excited to have you here with us, Jose, because I love you. I have loved you since you came on the scene back with 2022. I'm super hardcore anti-war, and you were like a total freaking badass. I guess your claim to fame originally was you confronted AOC, and from the left, mind you, which I really appreciate and really respect. And you confronted her at a town hall meeting, and you just really wore her a new one and told her about herself in a way that people just don't. Everyone just worships the ground that she walks on, right? Even though we know that she's such a fraud. And so, yeah, welcome. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Well, thanks for having me on. And yes, that is my claim to fame, going after her and other people too. I mean, ever since I confronted her, the list of people that I've confronted has just grown.
Yes.
Since then. And I'm really proud to say that other people have started doing it too. And that was ultimately what I was trying to do with them, is like to get other people to go out and confront people in the same way. Really increase a sort of tension in the country where you're not just like getting up and shouting and calling the person a monster, a genocide supporter, this or the other, but it's like you have to be able to point out the hypocrisy and also the conscience of the person, so that then it's glaringly like, oh man, like that person really is, an asshole. That's what makes the difference between the interventions that I've been doing versus just people who generally stand up and, call the person a warmonger, which is good. People should be doing that. But like I think the reason why the AOC one really resonated with a lot of people was because it was able to articulate the frustrations that people had with people who believed in AOC, people who thought she was going to be the real deal. And then when they saw this, video of me confronting her in that way and characterizing and articulating their frustrations with her, and then for her to be put on the stage in a national spotlight that way was, like, I think a big change, at least for independent politics.
I agree, definitely.
Can you sort of start from the beginning, tell us a little bit about your background and why you decided to get into politics?
Yeah, this is kind of a big question, but since about 2015, 16 or so, I've been involved in like a few different sort of political groups that have been considered fringe extremist groups, which are not at all. It's just if you Google them, that's what you get. Like the Schiller Institute, the LaRouche Organization, on top of doing a lot of nonprofit work as well. I worked with the Foundation for the Revival of Classical Culture, where we brought people like NASA scientists to the Bronx and Brooklyn and Manhattan. But, really working with these groups like the Schiller Institute and others that have a real focus on nonviolent creative direct action as a means to really go after war and, have a real solution for peace between countries. And being supportive of things like the Belt and Road Initiative and BRICS and other places and other things that can actually bring about a real new sort of way in which the world interacts with each other that doesn't have to include blowing each other up. So I was really attracted to that idea. And then I've had some personal run-ins too with like the local Bronx. In 2018, I lived in a basement apartment with my mom and my grandfather, and the ceiling collapsed in. It was sewage water that was collecting up on the ceiling, and then it all collapsed in. And so I was homeless for a bit, but I went to my city councilman's office. I got the media involved, and they were kind of helpful in the beginning, but then they just told me that if somebody approached me with $15,000, would I just drop everything? And like here in New York City, $15,000 barely enough money to even move out and get a new
Yeah.
place,
Right.
So I said I would consider it for $999 million. But then I told this guy, the councilman, like, I'm not the only one with this problem. I said, like, there were like
Right.
three other people that had the same problem. Why don't you want to, this is clearly like something is wrong with the people who own the building. Like, you're a city councilman, like, let's go
Yep.
after this. And he just said, well, it's, you're the one in front of me right now, and then he started like placating me, saying like, you're going to be the mayor someday, you're going to be and I was just so disgusted with local politics that I hated these people. But AOC, that was about the time she was running, and I was a Bernie bro in 2015, and then when he got he got his butt handed to him basically by Hillary Clinton, and then it was revealed that Hillary Clinton conspired with the Democratic Party to get him out. I was upset that he didn't do anything about that and instead ended up
Yeah.
endorsing her. And I was like, what the heck? So I ended up voting for Trump that year, not because I'm like some, big Republican guy, just because I was like, I'm so fed up with the system and the way things work
Right.
that like, you know what, maybe this will be different. Now, of course, now I don't vote either way. I don't go Democrat or Republican. In this last election, I wrote someone in. It wasn't Jill Stein. It was the name of the friend of the mother of my friend. I was, because if you're gonna vote for somebody you think should be running the country, my friend's mom is the sweetest person I know in the world, so I decided to write her name in for president because that's who I think should be running the country. But regardless, then like 2021, actually, before I confronted AOC, I had confronted Kamala Harris. She came to the Bronx in October of 2021. And at that point in New York, there was a hurricane that happened that killed 8 people who lived in basement apartments. And those deaths could have been prevented if we had the right infrastructure, because what killed them was a backup of the sewage system that ultimately led to water flooding into their house. And then they ended up getting submerged in their own home. Water was coming in from the top and from inside their apartment. They didn't have anywhere to go. Some of them were elderly, and then they died. And so I confronted Kamala Harris. I said, 8 people drowned here in Queens, and it could have been prevented if we had the right infrastructure. She was coming to talk about Build Back Better. And I said, we've seen other countries like China prove that poverty is a choice. We don't need to have poverty, And so that was written about in the New York Post and stuff, but nobody knew it was me. It wouldn't be a year later until I confronted AOC in the same way. That is what sort of gave me my claim to fame, where I, like I said earlier, was articulating why people were frustrated with the progressive movement, the Democrats in general, and politicians who were giving people false hope. And then I would, of course, I would confront Jamal Bowman. I would confront Nancy Pelosi. And they weren't the only ones. It's not just Democrats. I mean, people could get on my back like, why do you only confront Democrats? Are you secretly a Republican? No, I live in New York City. I live in New
Right.
York City, I would then, and I then to appease people, I found out Mike Pompeo was doing a talk at Yale, and I had just gotten my license in like September of 2022. So he was doing a talk in Yale in like November. So I could barely drive, and like I got my mom's minivan, and then I drove up to Yale in Connecticut, which is 60 miles north, to confront Mike Pompeo, because he should be confronted because he's a fucking war criminal, but
Yeah.
also just to show people like, I know I don't play favorites. Whoever needs to be called
Right.
out should be called out. So that's ultimately. And then then 2023 happens. In 2023, I'm confronting all kinds of people. Another famous one I did was when I confronted the executive editors of the New York Times, the
Yes.
Washington Post. And I said, because Seymour Hersh had come out with his revelations that we blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. And I had confronted Ritchie Torres on this too. And actually, that's a funny one, because at the end of that video of me confronting him, I say, I understand you're also an Israeli lobby plant, and that's kind of how it ended, calling him an Israeli lobby plant. And it also exposed how idiotic he was, because he didn't know anything. His response was, Nord Stream is a pipeline from Germany to Russia that transfers oil, right? No, Russia to Germany, and the Europeans are conducting an investigation right now, blah, blah, blah. And so I confronted the editors of this, And then that one went like super viral because there's a lot of stuff going on
Yeah.
that year. Then we come to the end of October 2023, and this is about the time I'm thinking about running for Congress, because October 7th happens, and then the slaughter of the Palestinian people just like amps up to 10. And I confronted Rachel Maddow, and I said, she was speaking at a synagogue. I said, there's an ethnic cleansing happening in Gaza, and you are here to tell lies about it. And then I was dragged out, and then, Ritchie Torres, he's not an apologist for genocide. He's an enthusiast for it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So given the fact that I live in this district, which is the poorest congressional district in the country, this is the, like, per capita. There are parts of Mississippi that don't have proper infrastructure. Some places don't even have plumbing. And yet the Bronx is somehow poorer than that. And this guy only mentions Israel 236% more times than he does his own district, the Bronx, which has the highest child poverty rate per capita than anywhere else in the country. And he only talks about how Israel this and Israel that and Israel, Israel, Israel. And so I was waiting to see if somebody would challenge him in the primary, because I'm not a Democrat. I do not want to run as a Democrat. And so I was hoping somebody would. And that's also when, like, that was the final nail in the coffin of realizing, like, the Democratic Party is so full of shit, because they want to come here and say that Ritchie Torres is so bad, so this, so that. Okay, well, where are the primary challengers then? Where is the person who's going to stand up and say, I'm going to take this sucker down? None. So when I did find out there was one person who was going to do it, ultimately, sure, her social media was like getting ready to do it, and then she privated her social media, then she deleted all mentions of Ritchie Torres, and now she has a cushy job working for the city. Funny how that works out. Funny how that works out. So I decided, okay, you know what, gloves off. It's like the end of January at this point. I decide, like, let's do it. I don't know what it entails to run for Congress as an independent. Right, so I'm coming out of left field with nothing but just the merits of what I've done before, hoping that people will support me. I did not have this office. All I had was a MacBook, my dingy little webcam, and like, I'm going to run for Congress as an independent. And somehow it worked, I guess, because I'm still here and I'm still a candidate. I have an office now. And in order to get on the ballot in New York City, in New York State, as an independent, it's one of the most difficult things to do. RFK Jr. couldn't do it. Jill Stein couldn't do it. We did it. Myself and Diane Sayre, Diane Sayre had the same requirements as Jill Stein and RFK Jr. We didn't pay people a dime. They paid people a lot of money, and we didn't pay anybody anything other than, like, expenses, gas and stuff. But nobody made a profit working with us. And our campaign definitely didn't pay anybody. We were able to get on the ballot. Over 100 people came out and petitioned with us to get me on the ballot. So that's when I knew we got something going. We have an ability to actually get on the ballot, be a candidate. And then in June, Jimmy Dore did a fundraiser for us.
Love Jimmy. Love you, Jimmy.
Yeah, no, Jimmy's been one of my biggest supporters. He did a fundraiser for us. And then that's what allowed us to have the office that I'm currently sitting in now, to have the headquarters. And so then, that was like basically then July to November, just being out every day, meeting people, putting up my posters like the ones you see behind me, up everywhere in the Bronx and stuff. And that led to 2.5% of the vote. And I was like, okay, great. Like, starting with nothing and getting 2.5% of the vote. Next time it's going to be 55% of the vote. And I genuinely mean that. I got a year and a half to go. I'm excited. I got a lot of people who are already volunteering for me, who I have on staff. Like, we are going to kick some serious ass. We already are. I mean, we're already mobilizing already. One thing that I hope that is different about our campaign than any other campaign is that it's not just a normal election campaign. I mean, one of the things we're doing a lot of things, but one of the things we're doing is like making sure, like, you guys know Dr. Mark Perlmutter, right? Of course you do, right?
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, so, he when he wanted to do a speech back in November, just before the election, one of his people called asking, hey, Mount Sinai, a hospital, it's a pretty prominently Jewish hospital. He was supposed to give a speech there and talk about what he experienced in Gaza. The faculty shut it down, and he asked if we could find him an alternate venue, and we did. Within 12 hours, we found him a new venue to speak at, and the people who were going to go to there came to this venue instead. And so, Mark also had me as his guest at the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund. Now, he was almost targeted. He was targeted, although he says they were going after the Hamas executives. I mean, that's what the IDF says all the time. No, we were going after the Hamas. But the floor that he was working on in Al Nasser Hospital was targeted. So when he got back to U.S. soil, I was the first person he interviewed, and we transcribed that interview. And then we went out the next morning to all the Eid prayers in the Bronx to get it to people hey, this interview with this doctor who is in Gaza. Mm-hmm. So that's just one example of what we're trying to do. And now we're trying to organize where Mark could be heard at a live venue for 1,000 people or so.
Nice.
Like a tribunal, right? And so, I want my campaign to be thought of as a vehicle to move for real, authentic causes that can actually enact real change. I don't want to be elect me first and then let's just do it. Let's just do it right now.
That's great. Do you have a take on people like AOC? Do you think she was well-intentioned and then became corrupted? Is there something inherently corrupting about DC politics? That's kind of an obvious answer. But do you think she was ever well-intentioned, or do you think it was all just for show? Same with Bernie.
Well, Bernie's a little bit of I can't speak for Bernie. For AOC, it's complicated because a few years ago when I first confronted her, and you can hear the interviews I was doing back then, I was still saying hopefully she can change, or hopefully we can, pull her out of this thinking that she's in. And now I don't think she's worthy of, she can be redeemed at this point. She's just way too entrenched in the party. If
it makes you feel any better, AOC was she was astroturfed from the get go. I can prove that she had ghost donors. Which I think I do believe that some of those are probably ran by the State Department or the CIA in conjunction with certain entities. But she, without campaigning at all, she collected about $65,000 into her campaign finance prior to even really having an office, really having any kind of a presence. And this is in 2018. And it all came. Do you know what ghost donors are? Smurfs?
No.
This is where entities we don't know, dark money entities come in and they use the names of real Americans, normal Americans, and they make donations in those people's names. And then it's how they circumvent donor limits. It's how they circumvent. It's how they hide the money going in. And so she was getting those from, I think when I ran her numbers the last time, and that's actually how they have corrupted small dollar donors, right? You can't even actually trust small dollar donors anymore, these donation numbers, because a lot of times they'll get fueled because the conduits, WinRed and ActBlue, don't actually require the numbers on the back of the credit card, right? So you can use gift cards, you can use all kinds of things to pay for these things. And you just have to say, well, I'm an American citizen. Like my neighbor up the street is 98 years old. I have his record showing that they say in 2022 he made 900 donations, which he didn't do. I confirmed with his family.
Wow.
But somebody used his name, his address, everything like that. And so I've proven that. This was the first time I ever got a big thread that really, really went viral was talking about this Letitia James one. I proved that she had done this, right? How she had all of these Smurfs. Some people call them Smurfs. Some people call them ghost donors who were funneling just thousands of dollars in small dollar donations into her campaign, right? And we know it's not these people. It's not, this, Kelly Brown out in Bismarck, North Dakota or whatnot. These people we don't actually know who they are. Some of them are foreign governments. Some of them are just big corporations, whatnot. But anyways, she was one of those people, AOC was. And yeah.
Well, that makes me feel a little better. I hope so, because I did believe in her. And one of the things that I like to say, in that video, where I confronted her, is that she was confronted by the ghost of her conscience. You know, she was saying, yes, I want to start a ruckus. I don't care about being a one-term congresswoman. She was saying all kinds of things that were resonating with me. And so when it comes into her, you know, blows up in her face, like, okay, well, I'm here to cause a ruckus. I'm here to call you out on your hypocrisy, you know, on your misunderstanding of what you think geopolitics is and what you think foreign policy is. And, you know, her best response at the moment was like, well, we need to be respectful of our neighbors. And then my response is we might not have neighbors because we're in the middle. We might be in a nuclear war soon if you don't actually speak out against this.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I guess it's like, I mean, the ghost donors thing, but see, that's the other thing. It's like, was she picked because of her sincerity? And that's why she was put up in that spotlight. And then at that point, they like then fully converted her to be a team player. Or was she always, you know, supposed to be this malign actor from the beginning? I like to think it was the former, where they're like, don't worry, we'll get you the infrastructure, we'll set you up, we'll get you just go out there and you be this progressive queen that we all know you are, and then we'll get you in the office. And then at that point, they then like, hey, we got you in there and we can get you out. So
that's what I would suspect.
See, I always think that they actually just go with, because at the end of the day, they're really pretty powerful. They can manipulate most people to do whatever they want them to do, right? And you take a woman, like, she's very attractive, she's well-spoken, she's got you know, there's a je ne sais quoi about her that people are drawn to. And yeah, I think you get them in there, and then it doesn't take much. You take them to a couple state dinners. They get a taste of that good life and the power and the adoration that she got from being the kind of, you know, the cool new chick on the block and whatnot. And then she just wants to hold on to it. So they say, well, if you want to hold on to it, then you're going to do what we tell you to do, and people just do it. You know,
exactly. That's mean, you know, we all saw her crying because she had to switch her vote on the Iron Dome for Israel from no to present or something, and Nancy Pelosi made her do it, and she's like crying, and I'm supposed to believe that this is real, but I don't think that. I think early on after winning, she sort of started making moral concessions, like, okay, well, I do need to do this in order to get what I want, and then you just keep making those enough to where you're like, I get briefings that you don't get, right? So like all the congressional people get, and their staffers get certain classified briefings from intelligence communities about all kinds of things. And, you know, their mentality is like, well, I know things that normal American public doesn't know. Therefore, you know, I know that I have to vote this way, or I have to do this in order to do that. And they're like, oh, well, Washington is like a game of chess. You know, you have to give a little to take a little. You know, it's all this stupid bureaucratic bullshit that prevents any real anybody who's trying to play the game from like actually ever enacting real change. So look at Thomas Massey, right? Thomas Massey is out there saying all the right things. I don't agree with everything he has to say, but that's okay. He's a libertarian. I'm not. And, you know, but because he's speaking out against the current powers that be, they're now threatening to kick him out.
Yeah.
And he hasn't taken a dollar from AIPAC, you know, and he's not being a team player. And that's exactly what they can do to AOC on the Democrat side. You know,
oh yeah.
That's what AOC is like. I know how powerful these people are. I know what I can and can't say. I know how much I can toe the line. So I'm just going to keep towing the line a little bit until I can, you know, then only when I'm like Speaker of the House, or if I run for president, then I can actually do the things I want to do. I just have to keep playing the game a little bit and then a little bit until I get to what I want. That's what I think.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the issues is the people who I know a lot of people who there's not enough money you could pay them. I'm one of them. I'm pretty sure Melissa is too. You couldn't pay them enough money or give them enough power to start voting to like drop bombs on kids. That's just like never going to happen. But the problem is the people who are drawn to politics are not representative of sort of the general morality of the population. The people who are drawn to politics tend to be people who are money hungry and power hungry, and so they will sell their souls. And so it's sort of this, you know, it's a really big problem. So I hope that you're different.
Well, I mean,
you seem to be different.
I can give you a, you know, I found this out. So when I first ran for Congress back in January, February, I was working at a coffee shop, And I found out that you can only pay yourself on the campaign trail whatever your salary, whatever you reported in taxes, like whatever your income was in the year before, you can only pay yourself that if it doesn't exceed like half of $180,000 or half of a congressional salary or something, right? You know how much I made in 2023? $21,000. I was living off, so I could only pay myself $400 a week running for Congress.
Yeah.
And I quit my job at the coffee shop, and I was homeless. I can only say that now because you're technically, according to the FEC regulations, and this is something people don't ever consider because why would a homeless person run for Congress? So because I took this reduction in pay, I couldn't afford to live where I was anymore. But I also couldn't tell anybody that because it's actually illegal to not have where you say you're living, like the candidacy's address, to be where you not living. And we didn't, so I had to keep it to myself pretty much till the end of the year. So I was only living off $400 a week. Wow. If that at times, because sometimes we were in like donation pitfalls, and I had to make sure other people were taken care of first before I was. So you know, it was wild to say the least, and
it's a full-time job. People don't realize that it is nonstop.
Not only is it a full-time job, it's like I never am quote off the clock. Like it's a Sunday, you know, and I'm here talking to you guys, right? And it makes like dating like, I mean, well, thankfully, so far I'm dating somebody right now who's only ever free in the evenings, which is great because I'm only ever free after everyone's asleep too. But no, I if you actually. And then I mean this, you know, because I struggled with this in the beginning too, you know, asking people to donate to my campaign because on the one hand, we need the donations, but at the same time, it's like, well, how can I actually get somebody to trust me when we've been burned so much by progressive candidates so much before? And then it's like, well, I do also have this record of like yelling at politicians and building my base up. See, because that's the thing. I could become an asshole, run as a Democrat, and probably win in the primary. What would that mean? I'd have to like completely do a 180 on all my morals and principles. Yeah. But if we actually build a real base of support that is rooted in an independent movement of people where I don't feel afraid to say whatever it is I think. So like right now, and like we were talking a little bit about the podcast, like if there's anything I say that I'm uncomfortable with, like no, like I honestly feel confident that anything I say, I would say as if I was speaking to 20,000 people, or if I was, you know, just talking privately with some, you know, family member or a close friend or something. You know, I am the person on camera that I am off camera all the time. There's no difference there. And if we can actually get myself and other people too who want to run as independents into the House, into Congress, you know, be like basically what you're seeing is what you elect all the time, then we can have a real government you can trust again.
That's absolutely, I mean, I think that's the ultimate problem is that all of our politicians are more or less bought by Israel and other interests as well. But I think that's the one that's most salient right now. And so to me, I mean, there's more to it. That's just like very obvious right now. I mean, it's not reflective of public opinion, I don't think. But until we have politicians who actually reflect what their constituents care about, then things are not going to change.
Right.
So I'm very grateful to people like you. I never have the stomach for it. So thanks. Yeah.
It's pretty disgusting. It has not been easy either. I mean, like lots of nights of just like stress and crying and stuff. It's like not fun. Yeah. And I'm crazy enough to be like, let's do it again. You know?
Yeah,
well, you must go ahead.
You benefit from running against literally the biggest shitbag in Congress, as far as I'm concerned, and so that is certainly motivating. Ritchie Torres is just abhorrent in every way. I cannot stand him. He is a crook, and he is a fraud, and he is a total sellout. He is a sellout of his constituents. He is a sellout of humanity in general.
Of our country.
of our country, our constituents, humanity. I mean, you name it. He has sold his soul to Satan in order to just defend the indefensible. I mean, it's getting to the point right now, right, where there is no, I don't understand how anyone can defend what Israel is doing anymore. I mean, gunning down 15 paramedics, hiding their bodies, lying about them, and then lying about the video when the video comes out.
It was like when you put the wrong name on an email, I mean,
it's just, so I've been off of Twitter basically for like 3 or 4 days now, and I go on and I have to like log off right away because I'm your tolerance goes down when you're off for a couple of days and you come back on and you're like, I mean, it's just, you get smacked in the face with this. I've been buried deep in JFK files for 4 days, pretty much nonstop, but for about 2 weeks. And it's really.
Did you watch the hearings?
No, because they were a joke.
Oh, you mean like the one with Oliver Stone? I was right behind Oliver Stone.
Yeah, I did see you there. I saw that. I saw the clip. Yeah. Yeah, they were a joke though, and I knew. Yeah. I mean, we knew they were gonna be. I've solved it. I've figured it out.
That's
next question.
That's for another episode. We're gonna go into Mel's research and theories.
Okay, well, I gotta watch that one. I'd like to know what that is.
Yeah. The problem is that there's so many rabbit holes you can go down. But I've been reading these cables, right, of just the State Department over the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and so much of what that country, it was just founded on obscene violence, and it has been nothing but obscenely violent since its foundation. And it's some of it, I was reading about today about the Nakba, about Truman's response to the Nakba. He was so disgusted when he got the reports from his own observers there about these Zionists pulling Palestinians out of their villages and shooting them, 1,000 of them dead. Just the most horrendous crimes you had ever heard of.
Sure.
And he didn't want anything to do with it, and he was just so unbelievably disgusted. He wrote in his private journal about how cruel he thought that these people were. And it's like, we flash forward 80 years and not a damn thing has changed, right?
Yeah. Well, that's great. I didn't know that Truman was a human being. Sorry, I don't think highly of Truman. But...
Yeah, I know, because he was super corrupt too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. That sounds like an interesting. Oh, well, let me know when that episode's going on. I got to listen to that.
We will. So, what are your for listeners? What are your main issues going to be when you beat Ritchie Torres?
Oh, I like that. One of my main issues, I think, is kind of. See, here's the thing. I mean, of course, I have a plan, a policy plan, which would reinvigorate the entire United States, starting in the Bronx. And I call it the Space Civilian Construction Corps. This would build off of FDR's CCC, Civilian Conservation Corps. The thing is that here in the Bronx, as is symptomatic of the entire nation, is that you have a lot of young people, 18 to 26 specifically, although we could probably bump it up to 1835, that are uneducated, unskilled, they have all kinds of health problems, they're poor, they don't have any real jobs. And we also have a problem where our infrastructure is failing. Our roads look like crap. Our bridges are collapsing, literally. And we aren't building any new cities, and we don't have any advanced forms of transportation. Like, why don't we have real maglev trains? I think the fastest maglev train that we have in the United States only goes like 60 miles or something, and it's as fast as the slowest maglev train in China.
Wow.
And, like, it's absurd that we don't have maglev trains, even though that the idea for a maglev train was conceptualized here in New York, in Long Island, in the 60s. And then they sold it to Japan. I mean, the fact that I can't get to Washington, D.C. in less than an hour, and then, because it's just absurd. So, you would take the young people that need jobs, need education, and you would put them in camps where they would get trained within a 2-year program. It would be an intense crash program where they would then be exported out, not just back to their communities, but the entire country, where they would take the skills they learned and build up new cities, build up infrastructure, housing, all kinds of things, and maglev trains, so that by the year 2036, the entire country can be connected by a rail line of, maglev trains, and we would build all these things. So that's like my grand scheme plans, but ultimately what I want is for trust in government again. I want people to know that they can follow what's happening in the Congress and feel like they can have a real impact in the say or sway of where things go, where people feel like they can come to Washington and lobby and know that their efforts will not be in vain, that they'll be able to meet with representatives and have honest debates at their town halls about issues that they may disagree with their representative. Because, disagreement's okay, right? Like if I'm a congressman and the war in Ukraine broke out and, 80% of people are telling me, no, we need to support the Ukrainians. We need to go and drive them and, make sure that they, can bomb Russia or something. It's my responsibility not to give into that pressure, but to have an honest discussion and dialogue with the constituents and say like, no, you're all wrong, and I will tell you why. Come to my town hall and let's talk this out. That's the role of a lawmaker. Is somebody, you have to be an educator for your community as well, and you have to tell them why you're voting the way you're voting. And if your community disagrees with you, you have the ability to listen to them too, because I could be wrong as well.
Right.
And so I want 435 people in the Congress, and I guess 100 senators, that anybody in the country can say, look, I don't agree with this senator or that senator, but I know he'll listen to me, and I know that the decisions he's making is not based on who's in his pocket, but because of what he thinks.
Right.
Now, that's a different conception of government altogether. It's no longer like, because he's paid by the Israeli lobby, or it's because he's paid by Big Pharma or something. It's like, no, he has a different belief than I do about, the role and the size of government, and that's why he's making the decisions he has. And I think that's wrong, and I disagree with him. But he's willing to hear me out and have a whole conversation with me about it that we then make public. That is government. That's what I want to bring back.
That's great. I think that's so important.
Yeah, I think so. I think that those things can happen and they should happen. I do think I don't know what your stance is on immigration. I personally think that we can't have a lot of that until we curb illegal immigration, because it does weigh down on our, it sucks up resources, right? Every time you're trying to incorporate people, you're trying to absorb people into your community. It's a lot of resources. And I feel like that this unchecked, even under Trump, even under Obama, when you're talking about absorbing 1 million people every single year, people don't understand how many resources go towards that. Teaching people the language and getting them accustomed to certain things, not certain things, but, getting to our customs. Right now, I have a problem right here in my own community at my Food Lion. We have a bunch of Haitian immigrants that live in an apartment, a complex across from the Food Lion, and they keep stealing they keep taking the shopping carts with them.
Wait, are you in North Carolina?
Yeah.
Okay, Food Line. My dad lives in North Carolina, and I know that supermarket chain. That's why. Okay.
And it's so frustrating right now because there's no shopping carts at the Food Line because they keep taking them to the apartment complex. And it's like we're having to bring out like cultural people to come talk to them. And it's like, no, you can't take it. So now we've gotten to where they'll take them all the way to the edge of the property and then leave them all at the back. And I'm like, this is but again, it's because what happened? You just brought in about, I think it was like 300 people, threw them into this community and didn't explain anything to them, right? And because, and people will say, well, there's no resources to do that. And I get it, but I'm like, there's so much I feel like that we could do. We could invest in our own community. I do think that that's something that has to get under control. And I'm not saying that as like, oh, this is an excuse, because obviously we have enough money to spend on war. So we do have enough money to do all of these things, but we need a total reprioritization. And I think the problem is that we just can't. Nobody wants to do that. The best we get is Trump is like, well, we're going to stop, waging war overseas, and we're going to build an Iron Dome here, which is just so, I was like, it's just the dumbest thing. But if it means that you're going to stop killing babies, okay, I guess. I mean, I'll take it.
Well,
Burn money here, but
if you map the entire United States and you went by community, state by state, and you just found out what kind of infrastructure is needed. Like, we'll take North Carolina, for example. I know there were parts of your highway that were still closed down because of Hurricane Helene up until January. I don't know if they've reopened.
this is so 40 is, but 40 is a hot mess, and they always have rock slide issues. So, but I'll tell you, in my own community, I live in Fayetteville, North Carolina. We had Hurricane Matthew in 2016. It was not until 2022 that one of our walking trails reopened after it had flooded. So you're talking 6 freaking years to reopen. I mean, to me, it's just totally unacceptable, right? That it would take that long to open up a flooded out walking trail,
So that's just North Carolina, right? And then if you spoke to somebody in New York, I could tell you a whole laundry list of things. New Jersey, same thing. I'm sure Oklahoma's got something wrong. Kentucky's got some stuff wrong with it. California is like a whole other host of issues, right? If you took the entire country and you mapped out what it actually needs, you will realize that you do not have enough people to actually address all of the issues. And that's where immigration can become a positive, because then you start an exchange program where you say, okay, you want entry into the country? Okay, if we teach you how to be an engineer, a carpenter, whatever it is that we require, if you promise to, be a part of these camps, we will pay you back, but you have to work for the federal government for a couple of years afterwards. Because then you can take people who are coming into the country, who want to come to the country. Now they're not just, sucking off of welfare or something.
Right. Well, I don't even think that they're necessarily sucking off of welfare per se. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm not like saying, oh, they're just like, it's just that even just to incorporate people, it's so much resources. I'm not like hardcore anti-immigration as opposed to a lot of people on the right.
No, I'm not either. Although I was surprised, like here in New York City in the Bronx, like when we first started, people were like really fed up with the immigrants. And I was like, Jesus Christ, like half of you were immigrants just like 10 years ago, and but there was a problem here in New York, at least, where Eric Adams was issuing like credit cards to the immigrants that were coming in here. And so that generated a lot of resentment, especially because we have a big homeless population here, and that they weren't getting the resources that they needed or the love they needed that, the immigrant population was getting as they were coming here. And I'm simply saying there is a solution where you can train everybody, you can incorporate people, and you can build new cities. If you take the incoming immigrants, you actually give them a skills and education, and in return, they have to build part of this country up again. Then you completely change the idea of what it means to become a citizen of another country. It's like, I built this city. I am a part of this country now because of the skills that it gave me. It completely changes and radicalizes how we think about immigration.
I absolutely agree. And it is nice to hear somebody say, to condition it on. Actually, you have to put in. You have to put in. It's not just going to be us putting everything in. You have to give. We'll give. And you got to think about when people were coming here in the 1890s and then 10s, 20s, 30s. That's really what they did do. They did invest and help to build the country, and it did make them Americans, right?
Exactly.
And so, and then we just don't do that anymore. And there's a lot of theory about that, about assimilation. I'm big on, actually, you do have to assimilate. You have to learn the language. You have to be able to speak with people. I do think that there should be more of an emphasis on that. I don't know why that stopped being emphasized. I think that there's.
No, I was just going to say, one of my problems with the anti-immigration position is, at least when it comes to South America and the Middle East, it's our policies that have made those areas so miserable
Yeah,
that's why
exactly.
people
The
are
Middle
coming.
East,
And so I'm kind of like, Well, it's our moral obligation to take people in if we've made these, we've contributed to making these areas basically,
Right.
hellholes.
But I also argue against obviously all of those policies as well. So
Yeah, exactly. But I always
yeah.
tell America Firsters, like, you don't like, I'm not talking about you, other people, like, if you don't like illegal immigration, stop supporting wars in the Middle East, because, that's
So
why people are
dumb.
fleeing.
It's so dumb. It's so unbelievably dumb. Not only I was thinking about it today. My daughter's school, she goes to a really old school. It's a classical school, and the poor building is just falling apart. And she's telling me about something else, and we just the report came out, 20 days of bombing the Houthis, and over $1 billion now, even though we know it's way more than $1 billion, and nothing. There's nothing to show for it. They haven't stopped them at all. The Houthis have now, I think, what they have knocked down, they just knocked down 2 Reaper drones in 36 hours, I believe it was. And those are $40 million drones each. So $80 million just up in smoke. This is, I believe that's like the 24th Reaper drone that they have shot down, which is just kind of impressive when you think about it.
Well, they're gonna deport you for saying that.
What that? I mean,
the Houthis did something impressive. That's how you get.
I actually, the Houthis kind of amaze me. I mean, those people.
Keep going.
No,
Are you sure about that? No, you don't want anything edited out.
Yeah.
No, Donald Trump better not deport me back to my hometown of Ireland on Dublin, right by the coast with a Guinness in my hand, or I will. No.
No, I mean they are. I don't even think that anybody could deny that. These are people, hardened people. It's quite incredible. I hate
those views do not accurately reflect mine. I will not confirm or deny whether that reflects what I think or not about the Houthis, given that they have now been designated as terrorists. No, I know what you're saying. Yeah. And I was completely disgusted with this. Maybe you guys saw this video that President Trump posted. That he was supposedly bombing a Houthi gathering, and it turns out that this was just a tribe meeting, right? Yeah. Like it wasn't anything. It wasn't. We don't know if it was actually a Houthi meeting or not. It turns out they were just celebrating Eid, and then he just bombs these innocent people who probably were just gathered for Eid, and like just posts a war crime on his social media account.
It's so weird.
And the number of people who are like celebrating it. I frankly, Twitter is so depressing. It gives me like the darkest view of humanity. I think it just brings out like the worst people saying the worst things. But so many people were just like, ha ha ha. Like, you're talking about people's lives. I know. The lack of empathy and just kind of complete disregard for the lives of people abroad is just absolutely stunning. It's like we've learned nothing from history.
No, it's really disgusting. And that when I saw President Trump do that, honestly, I was like demoralized for a full day. I had to put the phone down. I had to go outside and just breathe. Like, did he really just post a war crime on his social media? And people are actually cheering this on. Yeah. So somebody asked me earlier, like, what I would be doing if I was in the Congress. I'd probably be drafting articles of impeachment. To be quite honest with you, I don't know, and I didn't want to be that guy. I wouldn't want to be that guy. Like Al Green is just like Trump over nothing. But it's like we're getting to the point where it's like, no, he's committing war crimes, and he's not asking Congress for any approval. So clearly, he's doing.
Yeah, it's very bizarre. It's something. It's really concerning too, because again, this is the guy that he's the peace president, right? Or at least he likes to fancy himself as that. And I think he came in with, obviously we know in his first administration, yes, he did do drones, all of the things, but he did have a little bit of a leg to stand on, and now it's like he's almost hell-bent on just burning his legacy. Yeah. For what? Like, for freaking what? So you can kill a bunch of Houthis in Yemen?
Miriam Adelson, I think, is the beneficiary.
Well, if you take an honest approach at it, or if you want to take a good faith effort at it, then you would say that his cabinet is rife with agentry and infiltration and foreign influence. That's like, if I'm actually trying to have like the best faith interpretation about why Trump is doing this, there's just so much infiltration around him, so many people in his ears. He has Laura Loomer advising him now. Did you see this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, he loves himself some Laura Loomer. He always has too. Sometimes I can't stand her, but sometimes she's right. Every now and then. Yeah.
And crazy.
I mean, I was very, I'm not like a huge Trump fan by any stretch of the imagination. I didn't vote for him. I did, like you, I voted for him in 2020 just because I was like, I'm so sick of this. I was like huge Bernie person. So we have sort of similar political trajectories, but I did vote for Jill Stein this year. But when he brokered the ceasefire initially, I was like, okay, like I was trying to be positive. This looks good. And I can't tell if like that was just an attempt to sort of deceive everybody all along, or if somebody got in his ear afterwards and was like, "This, you can't do this." Maybe some of his advisors. It's unclear to me what happened, but obviously huge disappointment. And I mean, what they're doing to Gaza right now is just seeing some of the people there who are tweeting that it's like earthquakes going off. They've never experienced bombing like this. I mean, just people being blown up into the air by these massive bombs. It's just horrendous, and we're enabling it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that's why I'm running. I mean, that's why I'm running. That's why I have this independent movement. No compromises here. We do not compromise. That's one of the things about our campaign is no compromises. I say what I think, and I will always stand by a principle, which is, hey, if children end up dying, maybe we shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that's great to hear. And there should be no compromises on genocide. You cannot compromise on genocide. Maybe some other things. There's some like economic things, maybe.
Maybe not on tariffs either, but
yeah.
Are you pro-tariff or anti-tariff?
I would be pro-tariff if we were actually producing anything in this country, but we don't produce shit in this country, So
yeah. I'm pro-tariff because I think that the stock market is way. I think it was always way too high. I think it was
always
all speculation. It was due, and I think this is a nice, sharp, fast correction. And I like seeing all of the Zionists freak out over the Israel getting leveled with the tariffs.
Well, we could go on about the tariffs, but
yeah. It's funny. It was they kind of just made me smile because all of the people I hate were freaking out on Friday, and I'm like,
that was the only good thing about Trump winning this year. Was like looking at all the worst people I knew just completely lose their shit. Yeah. That was great. So.
I don't know very much. I'm not economics is not my thing. I don't know that much about it, so I sort of said I'd stay out of it. But that is like exactly was my reaction. And then I just saw that like 500 billionaires, 500 of the richest billionaires lost like more money than they ever had. So I was like, yes. Okay.
Oh yeah, and I've been seeing the memes of like people putting Trump next to like Stalin and Mao. It's like a communist president, for making all these billionaires lose their money. It's great.
Yeah. Yep. I love it. So I don't know. Yeah, it's like all of the worst people. And I feel like a lot of those billionaires, that was stolen money, stolen wealth from COVID. They should have never gotten so much of it, and it's nice to see, especially with somebody wrote a really long thread about Amazon and about some of the practices and the way that Chinese sellers on Amazon, which I am very familiar with what this person said, would manipulate the copyright or the trademark infringement system and really screwed over a lot of American workers, and Amazon did nothing to fix it. And I actually experienced that. Different story, but with Etsy, and very similar manipulation of the trademark infringement that really hurt my business when I was selling on Etsy. And yeah, these businesses couldn't have given a shit less. They don't offer an appeal. They don't offer a way for American sellers to make their case to them. They will just shut your, take your listings down or even shut your shop down. And so I don't know, some of it I was like, well, good. I hope it's nice to see a little bit of correction, even if I don't think that he's actually going to stand with it. I think it'll be 30 days maybe, and it'll all get repealed.
Well, we sued, actually. My office sued for the tariffs. I'm not one of the attorneys on that suit, but basically alleging that the executive doesn't have the power to do this. It should have been an act of Congress, so we'll see.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It got a lot of publicity because we were the first to sue, but... we also got a lot of hate mails.
Oh, did you? Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
But Jose, it was amazing to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us. And any final words? Tell people how they can support you, where they can find you, all of that.
Yeah, well, first of all, I thank you for having me on your podcast and giving me this platform to talk to both of you and to your audience. It was fun. I can honestly say this is one of the better interviews I've done, you know. So thank you for that, for being great hosts. If people want to support me, votevega.nyc.
Yes.
Although our website is currently under maintenance, we are trying to get something new and fresh for 2026. But the donate button and the volunteer button still very much work. And people should be volunteering if they can. If you're in the New York City area or anywhere near it, you should definitely come out with us. We were out last Saturday. Yesterday was raining, but we were out last Saturday. We were out for 3.5 hours, and 50 people came to our table and signed up and said they wanted to get updates. And, you know, my campaign manager is like always up my butt because I'm horrible at this, but we do need funds. Our weekly we need about $4,000 a week just to function, you know, because we print so much material, we print signs, you know, we have, you know, just like basic maintenance costs is about $4,000 a week. And so if you are somebody who's inspired by what we're doing, please support us, you know, throw in whatever you can. Now, and again, this is another thing that my campaign manager keeps telling me I should stress. The legal limit that you can contribute is $3,500 now.
Yes.
So if you just have $3,500 lying around, that will fuel us for a week.
There are a few people who do. Maybe not with the stock markets.
But
well, we'll include the link in the comments on YouTube, on Spotify, and Rumble.
And I have only donated to one politician ever. That was Bernie Sanders in 2016. But I will.
Oh my gosh!
You've inspired me. I'll give a little bit.
I will sell out to you. You can tell me what to do now. You know, not the AIPAC lobby. So thank you.
No, I'm very impressed. Honestly, like I think you see the problems and you have the solutions. So I'm praying for you, rooting for you, and get that asshole out of office. Ritchie Torres.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me.